Okay, guys, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council Budget Workshop of February 25th, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up on our agenda is Department of Public Works landfill. That's page 33 and 34. Okay. Tim and Dave are in the audience, I see. Okay.
Here, that's okay.
Yeah, front. Just talk to Tim. Any questions on page 33, folks?
I have one.
Yes, Steve.
Could you just explain the stipend differences between the 420, I'm assuming, is cell phone, the maintenance operator 600 and the maintenance operator 160?
That's the 20, there's in the contract, there's $20 additional pay for the day if they use one of their licenses. And Tim, what are the two licenses that they currently get extra pay for?
Electrical and heating.
Yeah, so 2 employees are licensed to do that. So if they work in that capacity, they get an extra $20 for that day.
Electrical and
HVAC.
HVAC? Or just?
Heating, also, I don't mean to change the story, but it's also if the guys use the Class A CDL, they also get
Right, yep.
In Class A, CPS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on page 33, folks? Next, page 34, top section, compensation and salary. Any questions there?
I just have a general question after everything is discussed.
Any questions on the top section, folks?
Just overtime pay, how much do we have set aside for snow removal?
Yep, right now, the winter operations account has $35,000 in it.
And that's not in this budget, it's left over.
It's in a restricted account,
Right.
correct? Yep.
Okay. How are we doing this year?
We're doing, as far as,
Because you've been out a
It's
lot
less.
for a little,
We
for
have.
icy conditions.
right, it's better right now, but the overtime, I don't really have the numbers, I should have.
Right,
done
oh, no, that's
maybe.
all right.
I have an update.
Okay.
So as of today, the overtime was about 16,000 for the year.
So hopefully,
And so,
March goes well, last year we used a lot in March.
So how was your supplies and how many more storms can we handle? And so you're feeling good though, because we haven't had that many? Seems like
We
we
use quite a
have.
bit of material, but we're full right now. And right now we're sitting at, I got rid of the print. With everything we got ordered and stuff like that, we're sitting at 18,700 for my weapons all the same.
Okay, good.
Very good, thanks, Jim.
You guys do a great job with everything. I can't, now that we're on your budget, Crandall Field, it looks beautiful. I mean,
Right.
they take the time to go around the trees. I just have to compliment you on all the different things you guys do for the town, to not just keep it running, but to make it look better. And sometimes in making it better, it's because you really have to paint the building or put on a roof or something. But thank you.
Brian, on the pensions, are each departments calculated differently? It jumped up quite a bit.
no, I think we touched on this briefly last time. So MERS, they basically tell us what we have to contribute on behalf of the employees. And for the municipal employees, MERS, our percent went from 2.16 to 3.46. So that you have to apply that to all the payroll,
Right.
Including overtime and
Oh, okay.
holiday pay or anything like that. It's all anything wage related.
Okay.
We have to pay that. his pension.
Brian, you said 2.16 went up to 3.16?
3.46.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
six, thank you.
Okay. The only thing I had a question on, it's small potatoes, but the very last item in that compensation and salary, it's the work uniforms. They've never used that much. Maybe dropping it a couple thousand, I don't know.
That's under contract, that's what that
Oh, it
costs.
is.
Yeah.
It went up a lot during the last bid,
Okay. All right.
and we figured
So
that.
we've never used that much, that's why.
I know, but the price
Yeah.
really went up when they switched the last company. We could only get one company to bid.
Yeah, and it was 4,700.
So we've run into problems with that before with one of the previous contractors. When the contract expired, they whacked us with, they tried to apply a bunch of fees and charges, and we fought them on it.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up settling and having to pay some of it, but not what they were asking. So like Tim said, we're under a new contract now, and it doesn't seem like there was a ton of bids coming in. There wasn't a lot of people that were,
Not a competitive
yeah,
process.
it's not a competitive market right now, I guess.
Okay, that was all I had on that section. Next section, general road maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it is tree trimming, we have 1,500, and I'd really like to add money to that so that you have money to use during the course of the year. Whether we take that from the CIP with the 1904 building and maybe take 20,000, but something so you have all the emergency stuff you can do. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Bill and Tim.
Did
Well,
you
I
talk
think we-
about the warrant idea and the trees?
Well, I think we may need it, but I'm not sure we can afford it.
Right, so.
But that's a council decision.
Well, if we can move 20,000 over, then we have something, because they're gonna need to take down trees, especially come this spring and summer. So I'd like to have money put in that, but maybe take it from the 1904 building.
Well, let's ask Tim, he's the,
Yeah.
Dave. You guys are the experts in the
And-
field,
and
what are your
Tim-
thoughts?
Let me offer something to you, as I've mentioned a few times, is that with 1,000 trees approximately that need to come down, I know you've done your best to do whatever you could for an emergency basis, and that takes them all day, and just to do that one tree probably. But we need to deal with the emergencies of 1,000 trees. We can't wait. Today, just before the meeting, I got a call that a tree fell on an elderly man's house. And he's low income, and it's a tough situation. It's gonna happen now. Those aren't the trees we're gonna take down. We're not taking down trees around somebody's house, but there are trees along on the public roads. So the idea is my idea was to put in an amount for a warrant item and ask the voters, to approve X amount, whatever that number might be, maybe 500,000, as a warrant item, but to borrow the money over whatever, Brian, maybe a 3-year term, so we don't have to swallow $500,000 in 1 year.
Well, I don't know that it's gonna be $500,000, so let's hold that thought one
Whatever
second.
the amount
Yes, I wanna have Tim's answer on what he thinks the town may need, because 1,500 probably isn't gonna do it. So, I don't know if you've thought about it with Dave, your group, what might,
Well, not only that, we had the meeting with the hazardous tree committee meeting, so we got a rough handle on it.
Yeah.
I mean, to increase it would be great. Yes, we could take down some more trees. Is it gonna solve our problem? Absolutely not. Like Sylvia said, we had a list of the town trees that right around 1,000 trees. It's really not gonna do that much. We try to do what we can with our own bucket truck. If you had some more, we could take down a few more of the really dangerous trees, like the ones in the wires. We don't do much with that. I will not let the guys, we're not
no.
trained at that, I don't think we can. But that's, it's not gonna solve the problem.
No, I realize that. So assuming that it's not going to solve the problem, because we obviously need a lot more money, what do you think you would need at your level to kind of do some minor emergency tree
Yeah,
removal?
exactly, just emergency trees or things that are going to be big enough.
Do you have any idea?
Because we need something, otherwise we're going to be overspending.
If you could put 20,000, that would be great. But I mean, it's a number that's up to the council, but they really want to put.
No, I realize that, but, I just,
For me to throw a number at you, it'd be picking something off the wall.
That money also goes to outside contractors, not to our department.
That would all go.
That's the hired
Oh, that's not what you-
professional tree company.
How many people usually bid on those type of things, removing trees, usually.
We never actually put it out to bid. But any trees that we have taken down, we have to get written quotes, but we don't go over a certain amount, which is 5,000, where it have to go out to bid. We just have to get written quotes, so. Until it goes out to bid, I don't really know.
Can we also take from maybe salt and sand, because we've used less this year to put it into tree trimming? That way, at least the general road maintenance stays as a budget item. But,
The other problem is,
you know, you do some things on your own, you don't job out everything.
well, we do everything we can,
Right.
and what we have time for and the equipment for, but we're limited at that. To take much away from salt or sand, like I said, we're right now sitting at 18, and last year we used over 10,000 in March. I really hate to take too much away from salt and sand, because we're gonna get hit from that. So
I mean, even if you took 10,000 from that, you would still be level with 40,000 the next year, plus you have money left over from the prior year, which is okay. We're trying to just juggle so that it still stays in general road maintenance, but you can move it between categories, or maybe you can do that anyway.
I think if we deal with the big picture, the
That's more debt
trees.
service, so
And
it's a
that's
very,
debt service,
that's a
right.
very.
So I just want to make sure, before we can decide this, we have to decide the big one.
Well, I don't-
Because when we decide the big one, we'll take some of those trees, and Public Works won't have to do it.
Well, I think we have to look at more local versus the big picture, because the big picture, I don't know, but I'm not gonna support $500,000 of extra debt service, I'm just not. Now, this isn't the year for it, I don't care.
Even though there are trees that are emergency.
There are trees, there are a lot of trees, yeah, but I can't
They're all-
support, let's, again, let me just back up. We're at 82 cents or 83 cents right now, more to the taxpayers. Anything we add, like 20,000 to Tim or anything else, it's gonna add to that, it's gonna add to that. We have to really be hawkish and not really look to add more debt service, add more expense. You know, a couple bucks here and there is not gonna make a huge difference, but we have to be very, very aware of that, on top of the huge debt service that we have to incur this summer with the land trust. That's $2 million.
I mean, that's also why I was suggesting that we can take it from you.
No, right. Lateral transfers, you know, it's up to, you know, I defer to Tim on anything in his budget line items, whatever he feels, you know, I have to defer to him. He's the expert, he knows what he spends. But, you know, your point is fine, but
I
again,
also feel that people own the land all the way to the road. We have an easement, and the state has an easement of 10 feet on either side. It doesn't mean they own it. The owner owns it, and he's responsible for those trees too. So although I agree with Sylvia and Tim that we need to take some of them down and help for the health and safety of everyone, but those trees belong to those owners. They do not belong to the state, or they don't belong to us either. So they are responsible for those trees. And if something falls on someone, yes, they'll sue the town, but they'll sue that homeowner too. So, you know, I think we need to do something to move it forward, but I'm also not willing to go into debt service for that. We have big debt we're putting in this year, which is reasonable, which we have no choice on, but I'm not going to do another $500,000 or, you know, just not going to go there. So anyway, I would like to address that maybe we can look at this again, maybe we can look at it later, but I'd really like to see some money move laterally into.
And I would like to get a legal opinion, because I believe, with all my being, and all that I've known ever since I've been on the council, that those trees are the town's responsibility. So
Depends where they are.
from the road. No, just the ones he looked at are on the side of the road that are on the towns, not over
We
the
don't
wall.
own we don't own the.
We own so many feet in, and the only way it'll get resolved is to ask legal and have them tell us. And if it's not our responsibility, then we know that we're not going to get sued by
Oh, they'll sue us
over and over
anyway.
and over.
well, let's not get into the
Anyway.
But that's something's got to be decided.
So for all of these columns, it looks like we budgeted 1,500 each year, but not even spent that much, right? Is that accurate? Am I reading that correctly?
It is.
Okay, so if we keep it sort of level, or if there's some sort of need to increase it, I guess I would ask why we're having the conversation now.
Because
Well,
there's
because-
1,000 trees that they've identified
Okay.
that need to come down, and that was, your committee, right, was under the impression that we might need to be somewhat responsible for any trees that is on the roadside of those stone walls. Beyond the stone walls is the owner, but on the roadside of the stone walls. And, you know,
So this wasn't identified in the past
The
couple of
the
years.
$1,500, the $1,500 is what DPW has in their budget. They're
Okay.
not the ones we're talking about, that if we awarded 20,000 going to that line item, that's outside contractors. It has nothing to do with these guys. We obviously have a lot of dead trees and issues in town with other municipalities as well. So I understand that it's a big jump from what they've ever spent or what they've had, but this is an unusual situation and it may warrant us doing that.
Understood.
Again, we'll have to figure it
And
out.
it's unusual because we've had the gypsy moths for 2 years plus a drought on the third. So we have 3 years in a row, which means the oaks are really crashing now. Because they can recover after 1 year, sometimes 2, but the third is really difficult. So we have not had that kind of a problem before, but now we do have quite a large one. It's just how we pay for
But we
it.
haven't used it each time. You know, if there were trees to be identified, then it seems like
We
it would
generally
come
job
down.
out that. We put it in there if they need something small, like taking limbs down or something. But
So this is
sometimes
for our
they-
bigger jobs.
Right,
Right.
they don't use it always that way.
And non-municipal employees, it's for outside contractors. Yes?
Does National Grid have any responsibility for any of the trees that might be near power lines or anything?
I don't know, Bill, do you think, Brian? I don't know.
They do if it's by power lines.
National Grid, do they have any
Responsibility.
responsibility on the tree issue?
I think they're only concerned with the trees that affect their power lines and the ones by the substations.
Right.
That's the drift I'm getting from NG.
It's a statewide issue, and I think their resources are running pretty thin, so it's not like we're a priority. But at that meeting, I believe there was some, Tim, did you have some insight on that? I know someone had went to a conference and National Grid spoke. Do you?
Yeah, we went.
All right, I was gonna say, they went,
They're gonna address some of the issues, but the drift I got from them is they're gonna trim what they have to trim, but like every town and everything else, they have a budget and it's stretched in. And it's not just Hopkinton has dead trees next to the wires, it's every city and town in the state. I mean, they'll do what they can, but I don't think that they're gonna be a big provider or resource or anything like that. Just what they have to do.
So Sylvia, if you don't mind, we'll talk about that when we get to the CIP. We'll talk about your topic. I know it's important to you. We'll get to that. I just want to kind of move through this Public Works section here. Anything else on general road maintenance? Do you think, to Barbara's point, anything in there, Tim, that could be shifted to the tree line item?
I would rather leave the salt sand because every year we're right on the line anyway. Last year I could have went more, but we stopped. We got other things to do. And we cut that from 63 to 60 to 50, and you know, we get hit with a bad winter, and it's going to wipe out our reserve and everything.
What do we have in the salt and sand fund?
we have, right now, I think, what was the number I said earlier, 35,000
So we have 35.
in the winter operations account.
Is that restricted account?
Yep.
Restricted account is 35,000.
How much is left in the salt and sand account on the operational budget?
So on the operational budget, the salt and sand, Tim might have a better number than me because I only have what's been sent to finance and paid, but we've spent 12,300 year to date out of our $50,000 budget.
So right now, Brian, I ran the numbers today as a matter of fact.
Right,
I have up to date what we have come in
right.
and stuff like that. With stuff I've ordered, we're setting 18,000 right now. So we have left, 18,000.
Left or spent?
Left.
Left. Oh, left.
18,000 left. So you
We
spent
still have another
38,000?
Right, in March, like I said, last year went like 10,000 something in March.
Yeah, so you spent 38,000.
Okay. All right, anything else under vehicle and equipment maintenance, townwide? Anything there? Okay. Next, building and operations, anything there? Okay. Page 35, top section, motor fuels, anything there?
yeah, I just want to know how is, Brian, on the revenue, you have the $1 because the revenue is in the public works revenue?
Yeah, so if you look,
Transfer,
we have,
pass-through, or whatever?
yes, yep, so we have
Well, we're at the top
diesel
section.
and
We're not-
So but
gasoline.
it affects why there's $1.
Yes, because it's a pass-through. If you look at the revenue, We have, like, the ambulance, the fire departments, there's 3 or 4 organizations that we allow to use fuel, and then they just pay 100%. We make a small admin fee, but it doesn't really accumulate too much.
Just a quick question, Brian, on diesel fuel, through half the year, $438. That just seems like a wrong number there.
Yeah,
How can that be?
I guess I'd have to look at the numbers, but I know a lot of it, Tim, that diesel fuel, that, you might be able to answer that. Have we not been using a lot of diesel fuel?
Yeah, right now we're at 13,211. That's where we're at.
So what happens is, I mean, the one thing I can speak to is that they fill when they fill the station, it kind of does come all at once.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we get big amounts, big bills, so it's not like $100 here, $200 there. It's like, 5,000, 8,000. So it is bigger chunks when he does get it delivered. But as far as the consumption, I'd have to.
Yeah, but that half the year, you're saying is 13,211.
This for the town.
Yeah. That makes
But
sense.
this is obviously the busiest time of
Yeah.
year, right now, in March.
You do a good job, Tim.
Yeah.
You've always been really tight.
Next, section, Public Works Revenue. Any questions here, folks? Last item on that page is the landfill, that we send, the money we send to Westerly. Any questions there, folks?
No, I think it's great.
Yeah, is Wesley negotiating an agreement with us to increase fees? Is the town of Wesley, what is their status with us as far as fees and all that type of stuff?
I've spoken with the town manager several times, and last Monday, they passed a resolution, the Wesley Town Council passed a resolution to approve the agreement, but they neglected to have the town council president sign it. So I talked to the town manager yesterday, and they have a meeting tonight, he's supposed to sign it tonight, so,
Is it a 3-year? A 2-year?
yeah, 2 years, $1,000 each year additional. And we should be able to get that agreement hopefully tomorrow, so we can put it on the town council agenda for Monday night. If not, it'll be 2 weeks later.
Mr. Grant,
Yes,
I just wanted to echo what Sylvia said. I live on Old Depot Road, and anytime we've had a problem there with the wetlands in the back, there's constantly water coming down. It's dangerous at the end of the road because it freezes. I mean, we don't even have to call the highway department. They're there almost every day, salt and sand. There's brush at the end of that road in the summertime, and they're there constantly cutting that brush down. So, they really are on top of what needs to be done, I think, with a limited staff.
Yep.
I just have one comment or something, Tim. Usually when we have budget pressure, usually the Public Works Department usually takes the hit. I know the police and the Public Works are the largest components of our general government. And I can't help but sit here and think of the budget cap. So dealing with the budget cap, the state may not let the town exceed, mainly because of shareholder pressure. I just can't help but think that maybe the Public Works Department will take another hit if the state doesn't allow us to go over that cap.
Well, that's up to us, I guess.
Yeah.
We're going through that budget now.
I'm trying not to.
And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying it enters my mind because the biggest, police and public works are the biggest components of our general government.
So I guess, I think we've come to a general sense that we would like to add a little bit more to that tree trimming, but we didn't discover any savings in going through DPW's budget items, so we'll have to just keep that in mind and see what we come up with as we progress through the process.
If you have a warrant line item, can you go beyond the state mandated cap you have a warrant item or a separate item, or does it have to be included?
So if we did a warrant item, it would just basically ask the residents to vote as to whether or not they want to approve a debt service. So it would just be an addition to debt service.
But it wouldn't be counted as far as anything, so that might be an approach you might want to do to get around that.
Well, we're
I
already
mean, the
above
debt
it.
service would be included in our cap, absolutely, because it's in our budget.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we had debt service, it's like adding to any other department,
Okay.
it's gonna exceed the cap by even more.
I'm just trying to figure out a way for us to address the issue, but
Well, we're at 1% above the cap now, just a little less than that, 162,000, so, right? If the Auditor General says no to increasing, or actually going above the 4%, we've got to actually take out another 162 on top of the 440 we've already used to balance this budget, so.
And on that topic, the town of Hopkinton has previously, before we were, not me, but you guys were seated on any council, maybe Scott dealt with it in the past, the state has never, they've always approved it, always, because it was always because of the school, and they always approved it. So that was then, this is now.
Yeah, they said no to Richmond, so that's why I'm just concerned. But we'll see. We'll see
Yeah, I don't know
what
what
happens.
Richmond's circumstances were, maybe
Yeah.
they're saying no more often, I don't know.
Yeah, and what concerns me also is our fund balance or our reserve account is higher than Richmond's. And for them to say no to them when they had, actually, they're the ones that needed it most, it concerns me. So we'll have to see how it shakes out.
And I think it's still looking at trying to move things laterally, not adding to the public debt.
So we'll see, yeah. I think that's it for Tim and Dave. Yes,
CIP?
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Go to the CIP. That's tab 2. The front page will indicate Public Works is page 8. So it looks like $80,413 in funding is needed for some vehicles in this particular fiscal year. They got $38.57 in the account. It's for a mid-sized plow, and then well, one installment, another installment of a mid-sized plow, and then a Freightliner, right, Tim?
Yeah, the Freightliner is one we had, it's the last one.
Oh, that's it, yeah, that's right. Mid-size plow is another installment for that, and then we have what else? A one-ton pickup?
No, the one-ton pickup's not needed, it's paid for. The Freightliner has this coming year. we paid for.
That's the last one.
Right, so that's the last payment on that, and it's the first payment on the mid-size plow. And I'm
Okay, so
assuming-
last payment on the Freightliner, and then the first payment on the plow.
Correct.
Any questions on
No,
that?
and they take great care of their equipment.
Did we get good rates on those, Brian? Just curious, I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, well, it's tough.
On the mid-size
I mean, I got an estimate to put something in the budget, but the short-term rates are moving so much right now, that it's kind of hard to get an accurate number from them. They're only gonna give me a quote for 30 days. So, you know, when we actually go to bond or go to get this lease rather,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like July. So rates, they won't give me a quote out that far. So we'll have to wait and see what the rates look like.
You must have got a general sense, right?
Come to, I could get you the quote.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my
Yeah, no
head what
worries.
they gave me, but I went through, I searched with a couple vendors, and MLC, generally they have the lowest rates for this type of lease.
Yeah.
So I went with their quote, and I'd have to get back to you. Let me see if I
Yeah,
can.
no
pull
worries.
it up.
Any questions on the two expense items in the CIP for DPW?
You know,
Okay. I think that's it, Tim. Dave,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you.
very much. Good to see you. Next up, tax assessor, pages 10 and 11. Okay, Ms. Monty, all. Any questions on page 10, folks? Yes.
I just wanted to explain where we get the revenues.
We're not gonna do it.
It says on page 10.
Page 10.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Any questions? Yes, Mike?
Just to answer your question, it's 3.95% was the quote we got.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Any questions, page 10, folks? No. Next, page 11, Sharon.
I just want an explanation of the revenue.
The revenue, we do
You put
charge,
$100 in there for,
we do charge for copies.
All right, hold on, time out. We're gonna go section by section if you don't mind, folks. Okay, so we're starting out at compensation. No, yeah, let's go section by section. Compensation and salary. Any questions on that section, folks?
No.
Okay. Next is services. Any questions there? Okay. Supplies, maintenance.
Actually, I did.
Go ahead.
I did. Contract services, line 200 or 5065. It's 1,200, but we've always spent more than that. Should that go up to 1,500? We spent 1,548, we spent 1,877. 1,200 sounds low unless I just don't know something.
1,200 is a good number.
I know you think it's a good number, but we have spent 1,548 and 1,877.
and,
Is that because it
And
was
you're
a
on
full
track for
rebalance?
13.
In the past, when we had to rerun a second tax roll because they changed the motor vehicles, there was extra charges for that 1 year, and then the next year, the 1877.
I thought that was the double tax roll
Oh,
year.
yeah, that's the,
Yeah, so there was a unique situation where the state changed the motor vehicle phase out, so we had to rebill, so there was additional expenses incurred there. And then if I remember correctly, I thought we shifted some, like moved something out of contract services.
So do you think the 1,200 is?
I think we determined that was sufficient.
Sufficient for this year?
Yes, yep. Yep, because we don't anticipate having two tax,
No.
yeah.
But the year before was 1,548, and that wasn't two tax bills.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the actuals. I mean, we sit down with the contract service and we itemize. I mean, it's always an estimate. I mean, we don't know what, like, for example, our Conica bill is gonna be, how much they're gonna use the printer, how much ink's gonna cost. So it is an estimate, but we do sit down and together and come up with an itemized list of what we think all those contracts will cost. And so I'm comfortable
You're
with.
comfortable with it?
Yeah.
You are too? Okay, that's fine with me then.
Okay, any other questions on services? Next section is supplies, maintenance, and operations. Anything there?
Yeah, this is exactly the opposite. On 5270 printing and copying, can that go down to 600? Since you've only spent 215 and 218 and 212, so you'll be up at 400. Can we drop that to 600?
I think that's what I was referring to when we said we moved, but Liz, you could speak to that better. I thought we moved something from,
600 is way too low, only because we get our bills all at the end of the year. Like, I'll get a big bill in June.
But you haven't spent more than 215 and 218 in the prior years. And this year you're at
Right.
212, so obviously you could double that, but
The printing, the 212 printing was only for the printing of the tax roll. Now we're including copying in here too, the
Right, but I
Conica
mean-
bill.
if you double it, you're still at 400 or 500, but not 1,020. I don't know whether you're going up $800.
The Conica bills run quarterly about $300 each, and in the past they've been in the town clerk's budget.
Oh, okay, is that what
So
you're moving over?
that's moving over to me for what I wrote myself.
So
So that's $1,200 for the year. It's 300.
Yeah, but it's,
and I think we
now it's 220.
have to,
I wouldn't vote to raise it.
Oh, I'm not voting to raise it, I'm voting to lower it. But
No, I know that, but
unless there's a
it's
reason-
been shifted from the clerk to her.
Yeah.
so.
I think we decreased it on the clerk side and increased it on this side, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go back and, yeah, so the postage, I know the postage line on the tax collection went down.
Tax assessment.
I'm sorry, I know, on the tax collection side, we took down the postage and because now it's being billed to the tax assessor's department. So we decreased tax collection and increased tax assessor because it's being billed somewhere separate.
And that's in the supplies line.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I mean, we can look into it a little bit further if you'd like.
It's just, it was a question because it doesn't make sense to the prior.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know we shifted something around, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes from the department head meeting. But I can get back to you, you know, if there's room to lower it, we'll lower it.
Yeah.
But you also moved it up last year to 1020.
And that's the thing, there was a reason why.
So maybe indeed you just haven't been billed for the other 600 that you're going to get this spring?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a reason that the budget went from 200 to 1,000.
Last year, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Excuse me, Frank,
Yes.
looking under the town clerk, under 5270, it shows printing and copying of 1,200 budget. But if it's being shifted from that, should that number be 0?
No,
No.
she still needs printing and postage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Copies.
it's the part.
That line.
All right, anything else on the supplies, maintenance, and operations, folks? And then next is tax assessor revenues. Any questions there?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yes.
explain, her to explain why she only has 100.
Okay. Liz?
The line with the 100 is really for when we charge for copies. We charge 15 cents a copy for people coming in and for field cards and copies of paper. So there'll be a little bit of money that we do take in for that.
You think it can be raised?
It's very random. I mean, we can look at to see what we put in quarterly. We don't make a whole lot of money.
No.
But what we do make in addition is the land use penalty tax, and that's random as well. But that can be a few $1,000s at a time, depending on if somebody comes out of Farm Forest and open space prematurely, because it's a 15-year commitment, we charge them that, and that's where it comes in, where the money comes in.
Is there any reason why we didn't put anything in the budget for land use penalty open space? Is it just because people generally don't do it?
It's completely random. We don't know who's going to decide to subdivide their land. It's already in farm forest open space, and a lot of people have been in farm forest and open space for their full commitment. So it just depends on the year. We have had some income in the past few years.
But it's arbitrary.
It's very arbitrary. There's no way to really forecast it.
Okay.
Under revenues, so, you know, the prior year you got 1,756. The year to date, you're at 1020, half the year, so it probably can be boosted up a little bit. I'm not talking about a lot of money, but it probably can be. I don't know what you guys think, but even if it's, you know, 750, 1,000.
Yeah. Or
The
6.
year to date, half the year, you got 1,000 already.
Can we raise it at
What do you
least
think?
to 600?
Yeah, I think we should raise it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much do you think, Brian? What do you think?
Well, without doing research, I would say conservatively, we could probably go up to 600 or 750.
All right.
So whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Yeah, we'll do 750.
Liz, you're
And
okay?
then the penalty,
That's a revenue tax assessor, very last line.
so, okay, so we're not gonna put it in the land use penalty, just the revenue at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the land use penalty is that this reflects like 2 years where we did collect revenue, but there's been several years that we haven't. So just so you know, prior to the last 2 fiscal years,
750.
we've had a few years in a row where we didn't see any revenue there. So,
750 is not going to break it.
no, I'm talking about the land use penalty.
Oh, yeah.
But I also think that the tax assessor has been very good about making sure people know that they owe it and they have to re-up, and if they don't re-up, they'll get a penalty. And I think you've done a really good job of that, because I know, since I've been here for 12 years, that in the past, that has not been done as a regular basis, and I think you've been very good about making sure people understand, if you don't do this, you will get a penalty. And I think they listen. It's a good thing. Thank you.
That's it. Now, Liz, just a quick question, if you want to just fill everyone in, I guess. I think this this particular year, we're going through a statistical revamp.
Yes, for December 31 of 2019, we're running a statistical revaluation. We're starting initial work right now. The appraiser captain has come down to take some initial reports, and they'll be doing some analysis. But the field work will start after 6:30. And we're looking at, I would say, a potential increase to values just from the last 3 years' analysis of my sales. Even single-family homes, we're looking anywhere from 15 to 20% in the last couple of years. So we're going to look at all 3 years. They'll make an effort to get into every house that has been a sale in the last 3 years. Obviously, they don't get into every single house because it's not a full reval, but they will make the attempt and send a letter.
So they still try and get into
They will
those
try.
non-sale, like an existing home that hasn't sold.
They won't get into a non-sale unless they have a permit out.
Oh,
If there's an open permit or one where there's been substantial work done, they will attempt.
all right.
Yeah,
You said 15 to 20% increase?
I believe so. We'll see how it shakes out, but that's the initial is we're at 80% to value
Right.
right now. So
I've been keeping track of real estate for the last 3 years,
Yeah,
and it is going up substantially into the $300,000 to $400,000 range.
yeah, we are in for an adjustment. January was fairly flat to last January. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll stay there. January sometimes slows, cold weather.
February's when that
It's
Yeah.
15.
So how is the state, just so everybody's on the same page, the state is now treating, with our ordinance, if you're a farm, you meet the ordinance requirements for farm viability, you can put 1, 2, or 3 acres, depending on the size of your parcel. So when they do that in the farm force and open space, that land does not now get taken out. The land, let's say they put 1 acre of solar, the land underneath is still farm forest and open space, or is that taken out?
It's taken out.
It's taken out, but they don't,
Go ahead.
but if they go lower than the farm forest, let's say they only have 10 acres. So if they go to 9,
The rest can stay in.
can stay in.
But that will come out and go to the commercial rate.
Right.
Unless they get special approval by Mr. Ayers at the Department of Agriculture to say they're farming under. If they're farming something under it,
Then it
it
stays.
stays in farm.
Sure.
It doesn't-
Another question, if a home is condemned, and it might be because they have some work to do and it takes them months or something, when that house is condemned and it's longer, let's say it's longer than a month, do the taxes, do they get a break on their taxes while they can't even live in their house and it's condemned?
If
That is-
it's condemned at the date of assessment, which is December 31,
Oh,
then that would change the taxes for the entire next year.
so if it was June 1st, it would matter?
Not unless you all want to put something into effect.
Okay, I just wondered about the rules.
Yeah, not right now.
Right.
Okay. I think that's it for Liz. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Next up, tax collector Mary Lynn, pages 12 and 13. Any questions on page 12?
How you doing? I'm doing good, how are you? New job, across the aisle?
Yes, just across, yes.
On the other side.
But then you had to move all your
Yeah.
pictures and
Yeah, I
everything.
had to do all that.
Poor Mary.
Okay, page 13, compensation and salary, top section there, folks. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I assume that part-time wages is the deputy collector?
That is correct.
Brian, just a quick question on the health and dental, I guess. What are the ranges that you're basing the budget on? I know there was a range.
Well, the medical, they told me 5 to 8% on health,
Yep.
and I put it at 5%.
Okay.
So I went with the least conservative. Because generally speaking, it's, because they don't want to tell us that it's going to be 5% have it come in at 8, because, you know, obviously it doesn't look good on them. So I usually feel pretty comfortable with going with the lower figures that of the range they give me.
Yep. All right, any other?
Usually but usually by like like by the time our budget process,
Yeah.
at the end of the workshops, I usually can get a much more solid number.
Yeah.
So we always update that at the end.
Before we go to.
Right.
Any other questions on compensation and salary?
The eye care program at 175, I noticed that the tax assessor, for instance, is at 350.
Yeah, so there's 2 employees, it's 175 per employee.
Right, but that, 175 and 175 doesn't add up to 350. On the tax assessor, it says 350. Shouldn't it be for 2 employees?
It is.
It's for 350, okay, so now you go back to tax collector.
Right.
It should be 150, not 175.
No, 175 is 350.
Right.
One- Oh my goodness, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking 150. 150 is 300, sorry, my math's off.
That's okay.
I gotta go back to
And
school.
the reason it's 175 here is
It's
it's one
correct.
full-time employee.
Well, it's that, and we kind of know who's been using it in the past, and I base it off that. Because if not, I would have to put 175 for every employee, even for the employees that don't. Because contractually, they can get it, but I don't want to I won't put in, like, for example, I should put in 350 because there's 2 employees, but we know historically only one of them has used the reimbursement. So I'll just put in what I think will actually
Yeah, that's what,
hit, you know what I mean, as opposed to inflating the budget just based on what contractually cost us.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yep. Next item under, page, yes, Luther.
Thank you. On the health and dental insurance, we show several years at the $9,000 level, and suddenly we're going to 23.
Because we have somebody who has full care.
Solar plans.
Right.
Yeah, so we just had our tax collector retire. So Mary Lynn moved to the tax department head, and we hired out an employee that has family. So she only gets a buyback, which is $3,500. So she doesn't get medical coverage through the town. The new employee does.
At family coverage, which is 22 and change.
Yeah, right.
So you look at, that's the net difference.
So just to answer your question, we had turnover in employment. The previous employee didn't get coverage. The new employee does.
Now, I've seen the 22 and change on a lot of the other.
Yeah. So that's per minus the co-share. That's what it costs for family, health, and dental.
And Rita has.
Rita had single, and Mary Lynn was a buyback,
Right.
which is $3,500, and that went to one family. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. You don't get a buyback because your husband. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it went from just basically Rita, who's a single,
That's
to now Monica, who's a family.
Okay. Next section, services, any questions there? Okay, next section, supplies, maintenance, and operations, any questions there?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Explain the tax bill expenses. Just explain.
Okay, well, that includes printing and mailing. If we have an outside vendor that does our printing for us, and it's for them to mail it, to stuff the envelopes, and to mail it out.
And we get pricing from Vision, so I mean, we don't really know the amount of parcels, and it's like a variable cost based on the amount of parcels, but we get pricing. So based on last year's parcels, we just apply the new pricing, and we get a pretty good estimate. But, the amount of parcels could vary from one year to the next. But, so it's not just an arbitrary guess, we get the pricing from Vision, and then we apply it to the amount of parcels from last year.
All right, next up, tax collector revenues, any questions there?
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, and I think I have the answer. I was gonna say, where's the property taxes? But they're in a different place. I'd love to see those revenues.
Yeah, that would be
awesome.
Like 18 million.
Oh my Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Next up, tax sale expenses. Any questions there? Some pass-throughs. Same with the revenues. Any questions on the last two sections of page 13? Okay.
Thank you.
I think that is, yeah, it's going to CIP from here, so.
Municipal court?
Oh, really? Okay. Municipal court is pages 43 and 44. Any questions there? We got municipal court clerk and court judge.
I have a question. Who's the municipal court clerk now?
It's my deputy, Monica Gordon.
Monica Gordon.
So I had asked Bill, I think today, like 9,000. Brian, just confirm what we had talked about. I think it's the municipal court meets monthly, and then the deputy tax collector works 1 day a week.
Right, right.
Okay. I
8
question
hours.
why it was $9,000 that they work just once a month, but not this particular.
Right.
1 day a week.
1 day a week, as well as one time a month.
Right.
So, yeah, her salary is split up between the tax collection deputy and the municipal court clerk. So she's 4 days at the tax collection.
Okay, next page 44, top item expenses. Any questions there, folks? Okay, the revenue, any questions there? Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they just showed up. All right, recreation, page 36 to 39.
The supplies.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, page 36, Parks and Rec. Any questions on page 36? Okay.
Just Mary, miscellaneous personnel, how many guests would be classified as
It's
committee?
seasonal, more in the summer, probably around 15 in the summer, and then during the school year, we have about 5 for the after-school program. And basketball goes up a little bit because I have some athletic coordinators. So it varies throughout the year.
Just curious.
Summer camp, we're open 5 days a week, 7:30 to 5, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we have a couple of those shifts.
Have you moved in yet to the Grand House?
Have I moved in? Not yet.
Maybe she wants to do that. All right, page 37, top portion, compensation and salaries. Anything there, folks?
Yes.
Yes, Shannon.
Can you explain what employee compensation is?
Hi, non-employee compensation would be for things like the Zumba instructor, the art instructors, all the instructors that would fall under part-time employee or seasoned employee.
They get 1099.
Yes, and then employee.
Zumba,
Zumba, yoga, art,
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi, yes, thank you, all of those.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on compensation and salary? Okay. Next section, services. Any questions here, folks? Okay, next section.
What do you use contract services, what is that?
That would be everything from the copy, the phones, the online, yeah.
A big portion
It's
too
outside
is
what
for
you
fees.
Yes,
The
contract,
fees
yes.
for, because they take credit card
Yeah.
payments,
Yeah.
so the
Merchant
bank charges,
services.
merchant
Yeah.
services, those fees go in there as well.
Okay, so a question for me is, you're already at 5,000, is 5,500 too low? The year before was 6,700, the year before that was 5,850.
For actual, kind of work with Brian with that, because that's kind of ever changing as he's kind of consolidating things. Is that
So
right?
we just moved over to a new merchant service, so the fees are gonna go down, which is one good thing. And also, she's also charging a fee now, for,
The copy.
Online transactions,
So the-
dollar per.
yeah, the dollar per, which offsets that fee. So hopefully going forward, it will offset the fees we're being charged from the merchant services. So we were able to decrease the cost, and we're also collecting a fee.
But so you think that between now and the end of the year? you'll
Well, I don't
be-
think there's anything we're gonna be able to do this year,
Yeah,
but I think going forward, we're gonna have, I think you're right, we'll probably overrun it slightly this year, but going forward, next year, we'll have the lower fees, plus we'll have the application fee to offset it. So I think we'll be good next
Okay,
year.
so you'll be watching that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You also had a new contract with the copy machines, did you mention that?
Conica.
Right, which, yeah, because, so the contract, we had a canning contract over there at Crandall House, and it was the worst copy. It wasn't very good. It was old, and we were getting charged a lot per copy. So the new contract is much, much cheaper, so.
All right, next section, supplies, maintenance, and operations.
Yeah, why did supplies go up from 1,300 to
Ye-
3,300?
Yep, that is actually, what we did is we rolled in, so first, that's what I was just talking to Brian about when I came in, was that $2,000 additional should go, that you see in 5390,
Yep.
should go into 5400, which is a little typo. So that $2,000 is from T-ball, is for T-ball expenses. T-ball's been declining the numbers, so it's usually got its own line item on the next page, so we decided that it would be best to just roll it into program supplies, because it's certainly not significant enough to have its
So
own
what
line item.
program supplies 4,800?
What's that?
Yeah. Supplies would be 1,300, program supplies would be 4,800.
4,800?
Yeah, so we're gonna, yes, and then we're gonna offset the revenue too on that.
Okay.
The revenue, yeah.
So 2,800
So
is
1,300?
48,
Yeah, 13 and 48.
and so it's 1,300 and 4,800.
Bottom line is the same, right?
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, it's still the same. All right, fuels, next section. Seems like we could maybe lower that, I don't know.
Big traffic buildings, I know.
Well,
You only spent 1,258 one year, 6 grand another.
heating fuel, we spent $6,000 last year, we're projected at $6,000 this year.
I think that prices have stayed the same, I would agree with that.
Do you have a more up-to-date figure than 1,047?
I could get one. See, that's the other thing, the heating one is very misleading, because we usually start getting the heating fuel bills like now. It's usually start coming in like end of January, February, March, April, we're still getting them, because, they're always in arrear. So we're starting to pay for heating costs.
So now revenue is going to go up, the next line item?
It is up 3,000.
No,
The,
I don't know what she
so we
added.
put $2,000 into the general, 7,3,400. Yeah, so 3,200, so it was 10,000 this year budgeted, so 13,200 for next year. And the current figure for, because it changes every week, because we're bringing revenue in every week online, whatnot, as different programs open up. I've got the general as about 7,000 now, so we're on track. I feel good about that number.
So the 1,320, you said something about when you added the 2,000 to program that you were going to add to revenue for T-ball.
Right.
Is that already added into the 13.2, or are you adding on top of that?
That's been added in
It's
already.
been added in.
Yep.
Any other questions on page 37?
I just have one question. You're pretty sure about 13.2?
Do I feel good about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Just because I've been looking at, it's 8,000, 5,000, this one's 7,000.
Yeah,
But
for
13 is
7,000.
almost double.
We're at 7,000 now, we're gonna be adding the T-ball revenue in.
But you already did it to the 13.2.
Right, but it's gonna come in the actuals as well, is what she's saying. So when you look at, if you look at the past actuals, it doesn't reflect the T-ball revenue.
Oh, okay.
So now it's gonna be all on that one line.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
So-
helpful, thanks.
The 40, so that 4219, it's actually about 7,000 now, because we've just, in the last 2.5 months, we've had enrollment in different programs that just started up. And we'll continue to go through June 30th, so.
Okay, page 38, playground program, operations. Any questions there? Playground revenue?
Yes.
Yes.
Just explain the line. So we run a summer day camp between 7 and 9 weeks out of the year in the summer, depending on how the school calendar falls, from 7:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. full time. And obviously we charge for that. When the academic year starts, we run an after-school camp from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So that's where those expenses and revenues are.
And they've really grown in the last several years, haven't they?
Yes. It's needed, it's needed.
Yeah, we drive through, the field is just so busy,
Yeah,
busy.
yeah.
It's wonderful.
It is nice, yeah.
And in the summer, when the children are going over to Ashway,
Yes.
there's all little lines of children.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's so many of them.
Yes, there are.
And there's adults at every, like 20
Yeah.
feet or 10 feet.
Yeah, yeah,
Children.
great, yeah.
Okay,
Good thing.
winter basketball program, any questions there?
Yeah.
Expenses, winter basketball revenue?
Is that still growing or
That's
finally
kind of,
leveled off?
it's leveled off. We'll be collecting until like the end of March for that program. We're gonna be right there, and it's even with that's shaved about as much as I think last year and the year before, we really tried to work with that. It's kind of declined, enrollment's declined in the schools, so that's kind of follows suit, but it's steady.
And our bill went up.
Huh?
Not for us.
Yeah.
Well, our bill went up.
to pay for
Normal decline, our bill went up.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
That's okay. Sore spot.
Yeah, since 2001.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't rub it in. All right. T-ball instructional baseball expenses.
Yeah, so we just moved that over to into general programs.
Okay, page 39, camp festivals and special events, expenses, any questions there? Camp festivals, and events, revenue, any questions there?
Yeah, Sorry, we're about halfway, just because I know the revenue looks slow, but we're halfway through the year, and right now we have a couple of the camps that run, like the Hoop Academy, soccer, that money will be coming in between now and June 30th. So we're halfway there now, halfway through the year, so I feel okay about that as well.
What is your busy time area? Is it
Busiest?
when you think it's spring, summer?
How about, I think I get a lull in October. Right? And then it's, yeah, once the summer stuff is all kicked off, it feels pretty good, but
It's under control, at least.
as long as everybody shows up and work.
I just have one more question. When were the fees last raised? for
Last
your
year we
programs?
raised a couple of them, try to do that every few years. Last year we raised playground, the summer camp, and the year before we did basketball. I don't try to slam them all the same year, but we kind of look at how our fees, from busing and such go up, so.
Which year before was what?
I'm sorry. Basketball, I believe we raised the year before last.
Okay.
The summer camp last summer.
I would ask, how do our fees compare to other local towns?
We're right there with them, we're totally comparable. I mean, we charge extra for non-residents too. We do it significantly more. But each town kind of offers something different, so
Yeah.
we don't have swimming facilities and
Right, but you
water
do the
activities.
basketball for any number of towns.
But we, right,
Yeah.
so we just try to do a lot of programs, throughout the year, but our fees are good. We try to be conscientious of the family, family expenses.
Yeah, so unlike any other department, Mary's department runs, and the clerks as well, but not many departments have revenue to the extent that the clerks and recreation. So it's nice to see. It offsets some of the expense certainly, so.
We're trying.
You succeed.
Yeah. So,
Okay, I think that's it for Mary.
Thank you. Oh, a CIP for me?
Yeah, there's nothing else we're funding.
No.
We're not funding anything. As much as we like to.
Well, we took care of the playground last year.
Yeah, that's true, right.
so
Waiting for it.
I'll have updates with that Crandall Playground in reports to Bill, and then, so that's, we're working.
Just waiting on a grant, I guess, is that?
Yeah, grant application to open this year, probably late fall,
Oh, okay.
so it's exciting.
Yeah, all right, sounds good, Mary.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Next up is the capital improvement plan, tab 2. So this section here is where we save for long-term projects. The amount that we're using for this year is $258,645. Bill, I know that and Brian, we don't want to talk about any other
Well, I
department
think
heads that aren't here.
it makes sense to
Yeah,
wait till
makes
the
sense,
department heads are here, like when we did Public Works when Tim was
Right.
here, it's good to have their input.
So for this year, when we planned 14,600 for IT, well, when we have Chris here, we'll talk about that. The next item was the 1904, 122,335. We had set aside 135,000 for this demolition. That quote was 5 years old. Bill and through Dave Caswell got an updated quote from AA Wrecking, and it's around 299,000.
Just rounded for free.
So the expense is a lot more than we anticipated. So I reached out to the principal at Ashaway School just to kind of let him know where we were in the budgetary process and told him before I got this quote today, and the rest of us got it today, that we were maybe $45,000 to $50,000 off from trying to demo that building that we all pretty much agreed that needed to come down. But as you can see from this quote from AA Wrecking, we're a lot further away than 45,000 to 50,000. It's double. So, I don't think we can conceivably knock this building down, add another, 140,000, 50,000 to that quote that we have in there. I told them we're at a point where we're going to hopefully just delay it another year. That's my conversation with Jeff, the principal at Ashaway, and he understood. The good news is one teacher that was in the 1904 building committee, she was also aware of what was going on, so she kind of prepped some of the administrators and teachers at that school. So I don't conceivably see how we can actually knock this thing down this year. Hopefully we can do it next year.
So are we going to take the 122,335, is we still should put something into that line item? Can we keep 50,000 and take the other 82,000 out?
Well, yeah, but then again, yeah, I understand, but again, if we take any money from that line item, it's going to put us even further behind when we have to actually look
So
at
you
it.
want to leave the whole?
I was thinking just leaving it in there.
Can we take 20,000 out and give it to trees?
I don't know, I guess that's,
I guess at the very end, we should relook
Okay.
the budget in general and
yeah, I
decide
mean,
whether
that's,
or not to
yeah,
take a little out,
right.
but leave it there for the
So,
moment.
yeah, so I'm just letting you know what my conversation was with those folks. They're disappointed, but they understand. And, this was before I got this quote today, which was double. And so I can't, so.
Actually, it's almost triple.
What
Yeah.
is the people at Ashland, what are they expecting and why are they disappointed?
Well, we own the building that's before, just in front of that school. And so we came, I think, last year, so you're right, Barbara, we came to the conclusion that they really felt it was unsafe to have that
And it was the
building.
neighbors and school teachers, we had a group come in
Yeah.
to talk to us about what their fears were about the building.
Right, they
That
wanted.
it would just fall down something?
No, active shooter stuff, I mean, so.
It wasn't.
We basically said that we were committed to taking it down, so we had a quote from the prior years of $135,000 to demolition of the property. But obviously that quote came in much higher today. We've set aside $135,000, but I'm kind of the opinion we should leave it in there, the $135,000, and maybe see if we can do it next year. And maybe we won't get hit with a high bill from the school, or we'll have some extra revenue from the statistical reval that we're going to do at the end of the year.
So your plan is to transfer this to 58?
Well, that's the whole amount. So I'm just talking about the 1904 right now.
Right, okay.
So the
Well,
135.
majority of it.
Right, so I'm of the opinion myself to keep it in there so that we, again, if our intent is to knock the building down, we're gonna have to build on that. If we take anything from there,
We'd have a big hole
we'd
next
have a
year.
bigger hole to fill. So I mean, we can do a little bit maybe, but not much. 'Cause it just puts us further behind.
Putting some money aside to save.
Sure, I
Yes,
think that's perfectly fine.
That second estimate that came in was between 300 and 400,000
Yeah.
that you got in front of you.
Oh, so it's even higher.
It's really,
If you
That
left
is
the
a
money,
big time.
you left
That's
the
a
money in
massive
there, that would be a
building.
good thing, because you're gonna need it.
yeah, and they're gonna have to enclose the whole thing to take it down because of the.
It's got asbestos.
Asbestos and lead. They're gonna enclose that whole building and then make it bubble.
Who gets the
Space
copper?
bubble.
It's a big job.
It's what?
Who gets the copper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll happily sell it if you wanna take it out. We are okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We
actually
are looking at having it,
Having
having
some
things
things
taken out
removed.
and sold.
reclamation.
Repurposed.
Repurposed before we take the whole thing down. Oh, yeah.
But it's not
Copper,
gonna put it,
massive wood.
Yeah, it's not gonna make the budget,
it's not
right?
gonna make it down.
Yeah. Maybe we should recycle bottles.
Or recycle radiators, you know how it is. A
Yeah.
little iron here, a little plastic.
Yep.
I am on the 1904
Okay.
committee, so we are looking into additional methods of funding, various grants or low interest, zero interest loans from government, EPA, things like that. We floated a couple of ideas for fundraisers because the plan is, once the building is down, to create a green space that does pay tribute to the building and all of the sentimental value that everyone has for it. So we were discussing with Dave and Tim, like the fire station, memorial bricks or something like that, plaques for donors of different levels, various ways that we could use private funds to offset the cost to the taxpayers, people who have more of a sentimental value of the building. And so we have not yet been able to have any sort of decision. I don't want to speak out of turn because we did appoint Tom as the liaison to the council, but no decision had been made to make any formal recommendation for postponing the demolition of the building. Had been made by the committee.
Yeah, just to let you know, he was here at the last budget session, I think, and he mentioned about, his recommendation was to postpone it.
Right, I didn't know if it was his recommendation or his recommendation from the council.
From,
I mean, from
From the subcommittee, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
it was from.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm assuming he was the liaison, that was,
From the subcommittee.
Right, yeah, to my knowledge, we hadn't made any decision one way or another to make a recommendation.
well, we don't have the money, so I don't know.
But if, right, so my only last final thought is, if there is any time, due to the weather and how we tend to get a very late winter hit, if there's any sort of time to delay making any decisions about taking money away from this fund to put towards emergency fund trees or whatever, if it can be made at the last minute rather
Yeah, yeah.
than sooner,
I'm fine
that
with
would
that.
obviously be
I'm
better.
fine.
You are right, the less we have, the bigger hole that we're gonna have,
I'm okay with
and
that.
more things, the longer we wait, the more expensive it'll get.
And I also hope that if you're going to raise money, I really would like to see if you raise money, that it goes toward the memorialization, not the taking down.
Well, it would
It'd be so
be,
nice if it would be for people seeing something in the future rather than taking down the past.
it would, both, we would need to raise funds to remove it with the understanding that a structure would be put in place and that would be the total cost.
Yeah, and at this point, remember, we're just looking at the raising, not at the putting back up. So it would be nice to have help from your committee too, to put something back up as a memorial. I think that's great.
Yeah, we'll bring that up at the next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys will continue to meet. I heard that you may not be.
We're
continuing to meet.
on a hiatus right now just due to scheduling issues, but
Oh.
we are meeting again next month. So, yeah, we'll still continue to meet until, the budget's actually been finalized and decisions have been made.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for serving.
Appreciate it.
So yeah, so really the only one that we're able to talk about tonight was the Public Works CIP. Tim was here, we talked about that. The rest of, it's IT and the police department, they're not here tonight. We'll catch up, I guess, next meeting. So, and the 1904 we just discussed, so. We're gonna, if everything goes well, we'll transfer $258,645 as a payout of the CIP this particular year.
And it's from bank, endowment,
No, that's not fund balance. This is just, we've saved over time for some of these items. So the transfer from the capital improvement is the 258. So and that's been amounts that we've put into this. It's like an escrow account for future projects, and that's what's going to be dispersed from that account.
and at the moment we have how much?
258.
Now, that's what you want to transfer. What do you have that
Well,
you're
each-
transferring it from?
Brian, do you want
All right, so every year, we have a CIP plan, right? So that, the column you're talking about, that's how much we need to fund for those CIP projects. So that carries over to the operating budget. It's a line item in the operating budget. So if you go to page 2 of the operating budget, you'll see a line that says transfer to capital projects.
It's way in the beginning.
So
That's from,
it's coming from our operating budget.
It's in the operating.
On page 2 on the summary,
It's actually in the
there's a
beginning.
line that says,
You see that in there?
this right here, it says capital transfer.
That's it. Okay, that's the CIP. And that's the amount that was decreased from the prior year, 195,000. So this is the one we're doing this year. This was the prior year. So we decreased it by almost 200 million.
Because those items that were listed there are in these other budgets.
Correct.
No, she's
Okay,
working it
but-
banks now.
I still want to know where,
Every year, we allocate money to the CIP for long-term projects. So, but what did we do last year on the 1904? Did we allocate the whole amount that?
to the 1904, and we didn't allocate anything.
Oh, okay. But at some point, it had to get in there, so, right?
No,
Oh, we're doing it this year?
yeah, this is
Okay,
the year,
okay,
this is the first year we're funding it.
wasn't there 12,000?
Yeah, so if you read, there's a note right below that.
Yeah.
What happened is there was a project back in 2016 to redo, I believe, it should say there, I think it was
Fire
the,
alarm.
yeah, the fire alarms. So we ended up putting in, I believe it was 45,000 for the project at around budget time. And then once we actually went out and got an RFP, the proposals came in lower. So we had some remaining funds that I transferred over to use so that it doesn't sit in another restricted account. We're using it towards this CIP. So we do that when we can. If there's ever extra funds in another project, we'll say, okay, we don't want it just to sit there, let's use it and transfer it over.
So how much money is in your total restricted funds?
They're not restricted funds.
They're not restricted.
So to answer your question, if you look at, I think what you're looking for is, there's another tab in your binder that has a list of all the accounts, and it has, you know, we have like, I'd say, a dozen various accounts. It'll tell you the balance, it'll give you the prior year balance.
Right. Each item, each line item has a spreadsheet, so to speak, of each, what's in there now, what's needed to
Right,
fund that up.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and that will tie into this report that I was referencing, just so she can kind of, because she's new to this, like, so she's probably wondering, how many of these restricted accounts do we have? So there's a list there for you that you can go through and see, you know, there's winter operations, we have one for legal fees.
It's tab number 4.
I see.
And I think it's to, what I'm saying is that Hopkinton's budget, we always put money aside before we spend it. So these are things going into a basically savings account, but they're restricted for specific items. But these are places where when we need to spend it, we pull from that to spend. So I think Hopkinton is very unique for a lot of other towns, is that we actually put things in savings and then we spend it. The same way we asked the town citizens if they would like us to take a bond out for the town hall. They said no, save the money and then we'll spend it. So at the moment we have
$1,600,000.
$1.6 million for the town hall. So we have saved it, so when we have to build that building, we will have the money to build it. We don't just go to bond because we need police cars, or because we need a plow, or because something happened. We are very specific when we go to bond, and it's very rare. Which I think is really, it's like running a good household budget. You've got
Long-term projects.
Yeah,
Same
you
as long-term
incrementally fund some big projects instead of trying to go out and get it all at once, and it lessens the burden on the taxpayer. Also, some accounts like the legal fees and the winter operations, they're more of like a safety net, you know, if you will. Like it's highly recommended from like the GFOA and other you know.
So in that section 4, in the reserve, the far right line, a column where it says reserve 6/30/2019, that $1.6 million is what you have in the bank
Correct.
Correct.
already?
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
thanks. But you can't use it, you can only use it for the things.
Exactly, because it's already been approved through the budget process or through a resolution, so it's restricted as to what the funds can be used for.
And if we have $1.6 million in restricted, how much do we have beyond that?
Well, they're all listed right there.
All of them spend all $7 million.
Okay, so it's a difference between $1.6 million and the 7 what?
Yeah, that's just $1.6 million part of it.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You'll see the general fund amount balance there.
Yeah,
too.
I see it up there, that's.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Anything else on the CIP, folks? So did you want to?
Well, the trees, I've driven around, because before I talked to anybody about it, and there was a resident that called me about it, I said, you really ought to come over here and look at Tom Hog Road. So I did, and I looked, and I saw in the summer how many trees were dead, and it was concentrated, it was an area where it was very concentrated. And I just took pictures. I wish I brought it tonight, but anyway, they were trees that are clearly on the edge of the road, and they added up to quite a bit. And so we all talked about it. We ended up with a committee, and of course, Public Works did the whole town and came up with a figure of about 1,000 trees, just under 1,000 trees that he viewed as on town responsibility. I see it as an emergency. I don't see how we can't find a way to do it. We have to find a way to do it because it's more important. It is an emergency. It can become an emergency in this year and the following year. Now, there's a way to go about it. It's possible that I would prefer to get advice from finance and that it be a loan and that it be spread out for a number of years so we can afford it. Maybe Public Works is gone, but maybe instead of going after all the trees, maybe we do it over a 2-year program, they identify the worst ones, but I'm not sure that's a good idea either. I'm very concerned about having to say, oh, well, we'll do this, this, and this street, but the other streets, well, maybe they won't fall. How are they gonna know? So, and it's not just trees that are, if there are trees across the street from the wires. They're big enough and tall enough. If you drive, just go over to Comcast, the police end, and drive down from that end. And it's, well, and you won't see what I mean because the trees aren't out, the leaves aren't out. In the spring, they will be, and you'll be able to see how many dead trees. I do see it as an emergency, and that these things are gonna happen. Already, the ambulance and fire, which I listen to, have to go out occasionally because of the tree, and it's always with wind. And I don't have the scanner with me, but I'm sure they're out tonight. And they do the best they can, and they're very good. So Public Works will go out, the ambulance, the fire, and they deal with it. And of course, sometimes National Grid has to come down because their tree, in one instance, was just on the wire. So I think that we have to deal with it, and I would prefer to get a recommendation from finance, if they can think about it and make a suggestion to us. Also, to look at the CIP, and I know we promised the people were going to take down the 1904 building, but if I looked at the if I had to make a choice this year between 1904 and trees, no, it would definitely be trees, but I don't, but we could still leave an amount in for the 1904. Maybe we take 35. We could take a small amount that would just be the loan payment for the next year, would be the debt. So if we could figure out what the loan payments would be, how many years for up to 600,000 or whatever that amount is when you talk to Public Works, and what would the debt service be? And if the debt service in 1 year was 30,000, then just take off that 30 from the 108. I mean, the 108 house, the 1904 building. So, but we don't know, so I'm just, it's something that's got to get kicked around.
But any amount we add to debt service is going to add to this existing budget. Because it's not in there.
Unless you can find a way to take it from somewhere else, that debt service for 1 year.
You can't ultimately.
Yeah, but it's not going to be 1 year. 1 year.
No, I meant just for 1 year. Just for 1 year. At least we wouldn't raise the budget anymore.
But even next year you raise it,
So-
because a bond is not for, it's not for 3 years.
Oh, no, I'm
A
talking
bond
about
is-
bond. I'm talking about loan, just borrowing. You have your lease things, you can borrow, and you can bond. There are a variety of ways. And I would prefer that he tell us what his recommendation is. But I don't think, I'm not getting that anybody sees this as an emergency. I do.
I do too.
So drive around and look.
I don't see this
I don't want a
emergency.
tree falling on a car or
No.
a person.
No,
I think that's awful.
No, I don't want
And if
to.
you have 1,000 of, I mean, it's not like,
it's not like 25.
yeah.
It's
It's
old.
1,000. It's 1,000 trees according to the
But it
Public
doesn't
Works.
mean they're
We
falling
should
down
do something
tomorrow.
about it.
1 year, yeah, but Sharon, 1 year is, if we set aside 20, 25,000, it's like Tim said, it's not going to do anything. It's going to help us a little bit, it's not going to cure the problem. I am just not of the opinion to borrow 500,000 extra because we have a tree issue. We're going to have to try and figure something else out because we don't
Well,
have.
what do you suggest?
Well, trees
Well-
don't fall down right away. They
Yeah.
take several years to die.
We can't add anything to the budget. In my opinion, we don't add anything to the budget. We
It
find a little bit of something to get Tim and Dave, or to hire somebody to cut some of the trees that are really seriously in need of being cut. Aside from that, it's definitely a long-term discussion, but I can't add any more to this. I just can't in good conscience.
And it's also.
It's irresponsible, given the current state of this budget, to add another 300,000 or 500,000.
But you also have, when you have a tree, the mast is the center part of the tree. That does not die in 1 or 2 years. And you might be able to see that the tree is dead. The problems are the limbs. They're going to fall first. The mast stays for decades before it falls completely apart. So if you can even remove the limbs, you're removing the things that are actually going to fall. An oak does not fall from the base. It falls in parts. A fir tree falls from the base because it just gets blown over as a unit because it's more like a grass. So you can trim all of your limbs up all the way through. Leave the mast, which is the hardest part to take down, because you're not going to also take down the roots. And you can get a lot done. But those loans are years, and it's a nut. It is not something that you can say, well, we won't have it next year. You're going to have it for years.
Frank, can I just
Let
say
me
something?
point out something, what Barbara just said. You can come over to my house and see the oak that just, the whole thing goes over. And the reason the whole thing went over, after it died, over just 2 years, the whole thing, oh my goodness, yes. And there was, and we're just lucky, there was nowhere it could fall on our property, it would hit something important. It fell on the neighbor's property. We're good with the neighbor. It fell on part of his shed. But the whole tree came out of the ground, the whole thing, the roots. And because that happened, you go over and look at the hole, because of the water. If you get too much rain, the roots it just becomes rotten underneath. And when these trees go over like that, go over and look and see how much water's underneath. Now, all we need is one accident. All we need is one tree to fall on one branch, which has happened in the past on Route 3, where a branch fell, went right through the window of a car, and she just was freaked out, but it was not her. All it takes is one tree to fall. And I believe it's an emergency.
A lot of these are private property too.
No, not private property, pumpkin trees.
On the road. Plus, I was saying when I did my canvassing this summer, trees was a very big issue.
People will vote for it, they will vote to do it.
Well, that's what we need to find a way.
But then take it down. If you have
The only way we
insurance
can do it is to borrow, and I'm not of the opinion to do that, given the current state of the budget. So Brian, I know we've had this conversation. I don't think your office supports more debt service in this particular budget, but.
Well, I don't like the idea of paying, you say it's $500,000, now we're paying $650,000 to
Because
cut
of the
down.
carrying costs.
You know what I mean, because of the interest, it's just, we're paying more than we have to.
I think
If it's $500,000, now we're paying $650 to cut down the dead trees, you know? That was my whole thing, like paying the $160,000 or $170,000 in interest on top of it kind of is tough.
So what would you suggest?
CIP, right?
Yeah, I think it would have to be a CIP project. I just would lean away from going to bond just for the simple fact that we don't have to pay interest on it. That's just my personal opinion.
So a CIP means you try to find a certain amount each year?
Right. Yeah, that's what we'd have to try to do. You know, again, this is your decision, not mine, so I don't really want to,
Well, what would the interest be? So that's what
Well,
we need to hear from you.
I mean, I can tell you.
What way you go, do you buy, do you rent, do you,
Well, I can tell you, you're going to pay $20,000 just to, even in a private bank placement, just to get a loan. That's the cost of issuance, right? So that, plus on interest, I would say, I'm just going off of a quote I just got for another private bank placement. If I did 650, 554, you're looking at like 165,000 in interest on top of the 500,000. And that's a 15-year.
And the thing is,
Plus, yeah, with the 20 would be included, yeah.
And what would the debt payment be
I can figure that out.
monthly?
What'd you use for a rate?
I used 3.780. That was the projected rate I was given for just a week ago from our financial advisor.
Okay, I'll calculate. The monthly debt service is $3623.72 a month. So $3623.72 a month.
It's 3,000.
Correct. It's $44,084 a year. Yes, George.
I think that since you've just turned down $800,000 a year in some commercial enterprises, it's up to the people that turn those deals or businesses, for better or worse, down to find the money by getting in commercial businesses. Now, you've turned down two. It's up to you. You should be solving these problems. You shouldn't say, we're circling the drain with our budget, let's go out and borrow more money. You can't do that.
It's not just the council, it's the residents that have to be part of it also. It's the whole town.
We're not going to get an argument. I know you have obviously opposing viewpoints, but But, oh, yeah, so that's fine.
I mean, do you get it?
I
get it.
And one other thing I'd like to ask is, and yes, when we're all set with this, could you please let me know, like for a $250,000 or $300,000 home, how much this increase is going to increase their taxes this year? And how much will their taxes increase in, let's say, 3 years with 40 more students within our school system from the houses? I really would appreciate that.
I can answer the first part of the question, which is about $250 a year.
Yeah.
On a $300,000 house, if our mill rate is currently at 2007 and it goes to 20.
Okay, so it'll be an extra $250.
2090, it would be an extra $249 a year.
Basically
And
$1.
then on top of this $250.
No, it's whatever you're paying in taxes, if it's a $250,000 house, just add $1 for that $250. So it's an added $250. If your house is $350, add $350. Because basically we're going up.
I did it on $300,000.
$1 a thousand.
Could I
It's
get one?
$249 more if the tax rate increase stays at 83 cents. It would go to 2090 from 2007.
Yeah, so it's
It's
not,
$250 a year.
yeah, it's not the $50 that get mentioned, even with the extra students.
Well, that,
No, extra
yes,
students is different.
our enrollment shift is already factored into this budget, which was, we had plus 21,
Right,
Charlestown had minus 61. So that's all been factored in.
okay, so you haven't factored in if on top of these 21, we get another 40?
No, we have not, I have not.
Okay,
Because I hope that doesn't happen.
And then if the houses are assessed higher, your 250 will be even higher, because your houses will now be assessed higher. Because we're already basically $1 per thousand.
And that has nothing to do with budgeting, am I right?
Has a lot to do with budget.
No, I mean,
No, the
the
next,
tax assessment and the conclusion that the house valuations would go up has nothing to do
Correct.
with our budget.
No.
It's just a natural fact, a byproduct of assessment.
correct.
Correct.
Thanks.
Not of assessment of our budget already as the.
Oh, I understand that
But the other
completely.
thing, the
I
changes
just wanted
are
to be
assessment.
completely clear that
Right.
when the property valuations are done,
Mhm.
they are done from a neutral perspective,
Correct.
and the additional or the lesser values of the house impacts the budget, but we're not assessing for the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
The net assessed values are factored in.
Oh, absolutely, I
And
understand
that,
that.
as Liz Monty had
Yeah.
indicated, should go up 15 to 20%.
Yep.
So that'll help us, but it also will increase the burden because you'll have a higher value and a higher tax rate.
At the same time.
Yes, ma'am?
Frank, you mentioned that, like, you know, the 15 to 20%, and I know we talked about that a little earlier, about how the home prices are gonna go up. I feel that's also gonna happen with goods and services too, right? So just like you said, that building demolition cost has already, what, doubled at least?
5 years.
So, I definitely don't, I understand the tree issue, 100%, but it's not like we should like rob Peter to pay Paul here, because reducing that is already setting us up for failure if we still need, because that's a priority.
Oh, I
You're
agree.
hearing like
Correct.
active shooter potential.
Yeah,
That's also
thank
emergency
you.
too. But some things will come off this capital improvement plan, so if that's an option, I think maybe someone's gonna go to the drawing board, maybe. But some things will come off, some things are gonna be here longer term. Maybe the trees is something that is something we have to think about, like a longer term thing. Even though there are some that are absolutely priority that people want to talk about.
Joe, I know you had your hand up for a while. so-
I just want to get back to something that Sylvia said. Just before I left, Pat was driving home, and on Old Depot Road, she couldn't get home down to her house, and I said, well, what's the problem? There's a tree that was partially out in the road.
I've helped her out.
So,
Old Depot, Home Depot,
Oh, DPW.
DPW.
so when I went down there, one of the neighbors was out there cutting that tree, and he's pulling it, and I said, Eric, what are you doing? He said, it's a dead-end road now, so he's on the wrong end, you know, you've been out there, he's on the wrong end of the road. And I said, Eric, what are you doing? He said, Joe, I have to go to work by 5:30 in the morning, I can't depend on someone coming out, I got a 2.5-year-old child, if something happens, what do I do? But, you know, we had last year, fire department went down for a tree that fell, which was town property. The tree had fallen onto the wires, started a fire, and he's already down at the dead end of the road. The fire truck can't get out of Old Depot Road because of the power line that's down because of the fire. So he was there 4 or 5 hours before someone got down to that road. So to her point, it is dangerous. I know we don't have the money, but certain trees and certain priorities.
Yeah, so if we can find a little bit of money to help out the cause
That would be
on an emergency basis, I think that's something we can
Right.
certainly consider.
Not the entire 1,000, but the emergency part of it.
But they haven't even used what's in the budget each year. So even some of these priority trees that there's still room in what's existing and approved before we start thinking about larger funds for them. Because historically, I know things take time, things decompose all over a long time, Barbara. But, spend some of the money. You have not historically spent that money, so.
So from a priority perspective, just being in a neighborhood where lots of trees came down, right, Sharon? I would think that maybe our DPW guys don't have the expertise and the equipment to take down some of the priority trees too.
They do.
They don't have
They
the
don't
time.
have one bucket.
They don't have the manpower.
Like for instance, last year,
They
Pat
do
called,
one.
she had a problem with a tree. I called Tim or Dave, they went down there and cut it up.
Yeah, they've done it. I've seen them out there before,
Sure. I
cutting
have
trees.
neighbors with trees probably too that are widows, and that DPW has been able to, help them with some limbs and then explain to her what she needed to do. But they do go out and they help get at least the immediate problem done, and then tell the homeowners the rest of the problem.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that the tree is right on the road, it's still her tree. And she had to arrange to get the big trees down. But they could help with the little things. They could get the limbs down so she felt more comfortable where she was pulling in. I mean, she's a widow, she's 82.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're wonderful and they help, and they could use the additional money to help people as they go, but then people need to use their own, their independence and fix their problem.
It's just maybe there's room for an education campaign. That's, I think that also might be something that we can all work on in helping educate people.
Yes. We had one come down last year on our street in the middle of a snowstorm, and all the neighbors around the house came out and started doing what they can. And before you knew it, DPW
I had
was
a nickel
there.
every time I did that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, right. I just say we just arm all the residents with chainsaws.
Yeah.
That's cheap.
That's
a
cheap.
great idea.
Yeah.
And they would do it. And boy, my husband would love one of those.
And we all have our pet projects, because people who choose to live in the woods in this rural country have to fight trees. And, my axe is the 1904 building, because it's across the street, and when that catches fire, my house catches fire.
Yeah.
My kids went to the elementary school. It is ironic that the increase in the taxes this year are due to the influx of Hopkinton children who will be going to that elementary school for the next 4 years, who will be the ones who will be the victims if anything goes wrong with that building.
Correct.
And what is the cost of keeping that building up?
Yeah, it's about, what, 20,000 a year, I forget. I don't know.
No,
The
it's not
taxes,
that
I
much
don't know.
anymore.
Well, we had a fire alarm, we had
It's
a.
a problem.
But like, I don't know if the
I
gas is
think
still turned on. I know the fire department trains in there.
It's more important
It
than
is turned on, okay.
Just-
So I know the fire department trains in there. When we last had our discussion, there's the process, the longest process that we're facing will be getting in touch with National Grid to isolate the gas that runs through the building.
It's a shared line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the longest thing, getting an RFP put together, what, 3 months maybe?
And the manager.
At most, especially for a simple one that's, take the building down, right? It's just, what will be the most visible action by the council in the eyes of the taxpayers when this all shakes out? Is it the majority of people who live in the woods who see a lot of trees being dealt with that they don't have to worry about? Is it the people who live in Ashley Town, village, who see that the old building has finally been brought down? That's up to you guys to decide. It swings both ways, so.
I think the children come first, period. Sorry.
It doesn't look like we have much money to do
I
either one.
understand.
I'm worried about the children driving down the streets when the trees are falling.
Right.
So I don't know if you consider getting my leg changed. It can happen anywhere in town.
You can get them in some company, but you don't take them, it'll still fall.
Bill, do you have anything?
No, I was just gonna add that, it's just not that simple. It's very complex. That 1904 school, there are a lot of things. There's a lot of lead time that you gotta give certain agencies in order to do certain things that have to be incorporated in the RFP. You can't wait till the last minute to do things. As I mentioned to you, if you were gonna do it this year, we would need to get started right away. But unfortunately, it's gonna be delayed to the following year, but it's just a matter of economics.
Yep, has asbestos in it, probably,
Yes,
from the
it does.
heating system and the tiles.
We've had all that tested. I mean, it's loaded with asbestos.
Pardon?
I said it's loaded with asbestos
I know.
and mercury.
Right. And lead.
All of that stuff.
And
Holy
fire
moly.
department trains there. What are they,
Crazy,
crazy?
all the expensive
Kids
stuff.
were there.
Yeah.
Burn.
My kids went there, yeah.
Mine were there. Yeah, so anyway, we'll deal with that, but he's right.
Luther, did you
And
have
these
anything
things
on
next
this?
year, you have lead time.
Several years ago, when we first moved in, we had a lot of trees that we had to take out of our lot. And I don't mean one or two, I mean a lot. Most of which were dead. And we got a nice surprise. And that surprise was that in exchange for being able to sell the wood, to take the wood away and sell it, we got a substantial reduction in the cost of removing those trees. We keep talking about funding everything as opposed to trying to do this as if we were trying to look at this from a capitalism or a business point of view, where we're not soliciting some company to come in and say, we have all these trees, if you get to keep all the wood, what's the cost? We're arguing about doing all of this as if we had to do it ourselves. Then we talk about we got to hire somebody. We don't know what the number is.
I usually mentioned that last week that it's a cash crop, right? Didn't you say that? Trees are cash crop?
Absolutely, absolutely. But the liability of having someone come in and cut your trees is monumental. You know, the liability of having someone come in and cut trees if they're near an electric wire is monumental. I mean, unless they have, electrician's equipment and they have the equipment that they need to lean the trees the other way so that they don't tear down the electric wires and they don't get hurt. It's almost as expensive as hiring somebody to take the trees down. I mean, it's a huge liability.
Some of those trees that came out of our lot were up against the limit.
Right.
And they did.
It comes out of your wood lot.
They did.
You better be well insured if it comes out of your wood lot.
They did trim the tree to make sure it came down the other direction.
Anyway, you guys have anything over there, Bill or Brian?
Just to follow up one little thing, Luther, what happens usually when trees are cut down, and the town works does it, usually the wood is left, and there's usually somebody right behind waiting. And
Maybe we shouldn't give it to them.
And what happens very often is where they cut it, the people that, in that house,
Yeah.
very often they get the wood, but if they just leave it there and they don't want it, somebody comes along. And so it gets used, but I hear what you're saying.
That's a revenue source.
I hear what you're saying. That's an interesting idea.
Thanks, everyone, for the
That's
summary.
regardless of, I've seen people put signs,
Motion to
don't
adjourn.
take the wood.
Just motion to close.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.